Everything changed in a matter of seconds. I mean, if you walk into the facility in Berea, Ohio right now, the air is just thick. And I'm not talking about that heavy summer humidity either. I'm talking about something way heavier. It is the absolute crushing weight of expectation. You can literally feel the reality of an NFL franchise standing right on the precipice. They are staring down the barrel of either a complete, total unraveling or one of the most improbable redemptions in league history. For general manager Andrew Berry, for head coach Todd Monken, and for the 53 guys fighting every single day for their professional livelihoods, the margin for error is gone. It has completely vanished. Welcome to NFL Nexus. Today, we are stripping away all that off-season noise to expose the raw, unfiltered truth behind the Cleveland Browns' organized team activities. Now, before we dive into this incredibly cinematic drama unfolding behind closed doors, do me a favor. Make sure you subscribe to NFL Nexus, like this explainer, and drop a comment below with your thoughts as we go along. And hey, if you really want to support the deep dives we do here, consider becoming a channel member. All right, let's step inside the facility. Tension. That is the defining word for Cleveland right now. Sure, they call these voluntary workouts, but let's be absolutely clear with each other. For the guys fighting for a roster spot and the executives fighting to keep their jobs, there is absolutely nothing voluntary about the pressure cooking inside this building right now.
And that brings us to the ultimate question, doesn't it? What actually matters when the cameras turn on in Berea? Look, in the modern NFL, the offseason is basically a theatrical production. It's a giant machine, an entire industry built purely on feeding a 24/7 news cycle. It is loaded with smokescreens, media narratives, and just totally manufactured drama designed to get clicks from a fan base that is starving for football. But if you look past the practice jerseys and the mandatory hydration breaks and those perfectly scripted press conferences, there is a profoundly different game being played. A much darker, high-stakes chess match where franchise-altering decisions are being made quietly right there in the shadows. So today, we're going to separate those meaningless media distractions from the very real, very dangerous reality confronting this coaching staff.
Section 1. The Myles Garrett non-issue. Noise versus production.
Okay, so every single year, right like clockwork, the media needs a villain. They need a talking point, something to generate engagement and kind of weaponize the anxiety of a really loyal fan base. And in Cleveland, well, the absolute easiest target is taking the best player on the field and pointing out that he's simply not on the field in May. The reigning Defensive Player of the Year, the literal cornerstone of the Cleveland Browns defense, is absent from voluntary OTAs again. And man, immediately the panic sets in. The articles get published, the hot takes are fired off into the ether. You hear stuff like, where's the leadership? Or, why isn't he here setting the tone for the younger guys? The narrative just spirals wildly out of control. It starts painting this picture of a fractured locker room or a superstar who just doesn't care enough to show up for phase 1 of off-season workouts. But guys, let me tell you, this is the ultimate misdirection. It's a localized smokescreen hiding the actual storm brewing just a few locker stalls down. When you look at this critically, when you strip away the emotion and just analyze the cold data, the reality of the situation is completely different from the perceived panic.
There is just this massive, gaping gulf between media noise and reality in the National Football League. On one side of the screen, you have the distraction, the outrage over a veteran skipping some voluntary non-contact practices in the spring. But on the other side, you have the cold, hard, inescapable reality of his actual on-field production. We're talking at least 14 sacks in 5 consecutive seasons. Look, that isn't just good, that is historic, first-ballot Hall of Fame level consistency. Myles Garrett operates on his own intensely calibrated off-season regimen. He prepares his body away from the facility, using specialized trainers, biomechanical experts, you name it. And the results? They are utterly devastating for opposing quarterbacks. To sit here and obsess over his absence in May is to completely, willfully ignore his absolute dominance in September, October, November, and December. It completely ignores how he routinely manhandles elite, terrifying offensive tackles, guys like Trent Williams, Laramie Tunzel, Ronnie Stanley, year in and year out. This whole controversy, it is, as the insiders call it, a massive nothing burger.
And if you really need proof that his highly personalized regimen actually works, I just want you to look at this number. 23. That number should put this debate to rest permanently. Just let that sit there for a second. 23 sacks. That is what Myles Garrett produced last year alone. And you know what? He skipped the voluntary minicamp last year too. He wasn't there when the cameras were rolling in May, but he was absolutely there when it actually mattered. Literally tearing through offensive lines, commanding constant double and triple teams on every single play, taking chip blocks from tight ends all game, and still walking away with the Defensive Player of the Year award. The sheer physical dominance required to achieve a 23-sack season, that doesn't happen by accident, guys. Rushing the passer over 500 times a season takes a brutal, violent toll on the human body, and getting ready for that absolute meat grinder of a season is certainly not going to be derailed by missing a few walkthroughs in shorts and t-shirts. The Browns organization, they know this. The front office knows this.
Which is exactly why the internal communication coming out of Berea tells a completely different story than the external media panic. Head coach Todd Monken hit the nail right on the head. He said, "I wish they were here, but every one of them is a Brown, and we're excited that they are." And he didn't stop there. Monken actually went out of his way to explicitly note that the communication from Garrett and the other absent guys has been, in his own words, unbelievable. So there's no mutiny here. There is absolutely no disrespect. What you have is a deeply rooted mutual understanding between a franchise and its absolute most elite, irreplaceable asset. The noise outside the building might be deafening, but inside, it's calm. Because the coaching staff knows the real crisis, it isn't on the defensive line.
Section 2. Watson versus Sanders, the real collision.
All right, the false drama is over. We've cleared the smoke. Now we're stepping right into the fire. Because this right here, this is where the cinematic, cutthroat tension of the Cleveland Browns offseason truly lies. This isn't some media creation. This is a legitimate, franchise-defining battle happening right this second on the practice fields of Berea. $230 million, fully guaranteed. I really need you to let the sheer, overwhelming gravity of that number sink in. $230 million, this isn't just a contract anymore. It is a financial anchor completely tied to the foundation of the Cleveland Browns. This specific number dictates absolutely everything they do. It forced the Browns into this marriage, and it has heavily restricted their ability to build a complete roster around it. Deshaun Watson's contract is the massive elephant in the room. It's this dark shadow hanging over every single throw he makes in practice. Think about this. If they were to just cut him today, the dead cap ramifications would quite literally break the salary cap rules of the NFL. It would cripple the franchise for half a decade. Because of this harsh structural reality, this is a reclamation project that the Browns absolutely desperately need to work. But, as we all know, in the unforgiving, violent environment of the NFL, money doesn't buy health, and it certainly doesn't buy performance.
And that sets the stage for what is easily the most fascinating, dramatic dynamic in the entire league right now. On one side, you have Deshaun Watson, the heavily compensated veteran who is basically on his absolute last legs in Cleveland, fighting a war against his own failing body and these mounting, suffocating expectations. Now, he currently holds the inside edge for the starting job, but let's be real. That's largely due to the massive financial obligations and a tenuous connection with Todd Monken. But going up against him, you've got Shedeur Sanders, a mid-round rookie who got thrown right into the fire last year. Sanders made 7 starts in a totally broken offense, and man, he flashed some genuine NFL potential. He showed incredible poise in the pocket, delivering high-pressure throws against these complex blitz packages that usually just break rookie quarterbacks in half. So what we have here is a classic Hollywood showdown. It's the battered, wealthy veteran desperately trying to prove he still belongs, constantly having to look over his shoulder at the young, hungry challenger who is sitting on standby, just waiting for the veteran to falter. This means every single rep in Berea is magnified. Every incompletion is heavily, intensely scrutinized by the front office upstairs.
The situation is honestly so incredibly fragile right now that the organization is literally relying on the schedule itself for protection. Look at their Week 1 strategy. It's brilliant, but man, is it revealing. Back-to-back road games to start the season. Now, why does this matter so much? Because it deliberately shields Deshaun Watson from his own home crowd at Huntington Bank Field. The organization knows exactly what's at stake. They know that if Watson walks out in Week 1 at home, drops back, and throws an early interception right into double coverage, the boos raining down from the dog pound will be absolutely deafening. The toxicity in that stadium could instantly derail the entire season before it even gets going. So by starting on the road, facing hostile environments but completely avoiding friendly fire, they're trying to manufacture a runway for him. They desperately want him to build up some confidence away from the unforgiving pressure cooker of the Cleveland fanbase before finally returning home in Week 3. It is a highly strategic, calculated chess move, and it is born out of pure, unadulterated desperation to protect their investment.
Section 3. Reshaping the quarterback room, the business of the NFL.
So when you have a battle this critical, with stakes this impossibly high, collateral damage isn't just possible, it's inevitable. The business of the NFL is ruthless, guys, and the decisions getting made in this quarterback room over the next few weeks are going to drastically alter the careers of multiple young men. Let's methodically break down this new hierarchy. Watson is your QB1. For now, he is the starter out of pure necessity and an overwhelming, inescapable financial obligation. Then you have Shedeur Sanders, firmly locked in at QB2, hovering directly behind him, just waiting on standby and taking all those critical mental reps. Moving down the list, you find Taylon Green, the 6'6", 6th-round pick.
He actually survives this bloodbath as the developmental QB3. He's the emergency option, a raw talent the Browns simply cannot risk exposing to the waiver wire where some quarterback-needy team could easily just poach him. But in this complex equation, there's always an odd man out, and that is Dillon Gabriel. Look, in a room this crowded, someone has to be voted off the island. Carrying 4 quarterbacks on a 53-man roster, it's practically a mathematical impossibility when you factor in salary cap constraints and the need for roster flexibility at other positions. And Gabriel, he just doesn't fit the practice squad eligibility matrix in a way that benefits Cleveland's long-term timeline, which means, unfortunately for him, he is fully expected to be traded for a day 3 draft pick or just released outright. It's a harsh reminder that your draft status doesn't mean a thing when a franchise goes into absolute survival mode.
And to make matters worse, there is a rapidly ticking clock attached to all of this chaos. Head coach Todd Monken isn't messing around. He has drawn a very hard, very public line in the sand. He aims to announce the official starting quarterback by the June 11th minicamp deadline. Now, you might be thinking, why that specific date? This isn't just an arbitrary day pulled out of thin air. It is a hard structural deadline born straight from the NFL's collective bargaining agreement. June 11th marks the absolute end of mandatory minicamp. It is the literal last time the coaching staff has their hands on these players before the mandatory dead period in July. Monken knows he absolutely cannot send a divided, unsure locker room into a 5-week summer vacation. That is a recipe for disaster. He needs his team to rally behind one specific voice, one definitive leader long before they break for the summer. So the pressure on both Watson and Sanders between now and that June 11th cutoff, it is immense. Every single pass in practice, every single read at the line of scrimmage, every tense film session, it's all a high-stakes audition for the keys to a $2 billion franchise.
Section 4. A franchise-defining season. The timeline of unraveling.
You know, you don't hand a player $230 million fully guaranteed, expecting to be hiding him from his own fans just a few short years later. To truly, deeply understand why the Browns are treating this current camp battle with such grave life-or-death urgency, we have to look back. We have to look at the grim, chaotic history that brought them to this desperate point. This timeline right here, it's a visual representation of an immense risk that has backfired in spectacular fashion. Think about this. You have to go all the way back to 2019 to find the very last time Deshaun Watson completed a full healthy season. 2019. Think about how an eternity that is in football years. Since then, it's been a disaster. You had the massive disruption of an 11-game suspension in 2022. Then in 2023, he managed to play in only 6 games before suffering a season-ending broken shoulder. And then, 2024 happened. The ultimate medical nightmare unfolded. He ruptured his Achilles tendon. Twice. Think about the gravity of that. To tear an Achilles once is a massive, career-altering event. It completely destroys a quarterback's ability to drive off their plant leg, which drastically reduces throw velocity and accuracy. Plus, you get the buildup of scar tissue and the sheer psychological terror of trying to step up into a collapsing pocket of 300-pound defensive linemen. It changes a player permanently. But to rupture it twice? That is physically catastrophic. And yet, this battered, broken body of work is exactly what the Browns are relying on to save their entire franchise. It is a foundation built entirely on sand.
The implications of this devastating timeline bring us to the ultimate, unavoidable consequences for this organization. Because here is the thing. It's not just that Watson has been chronically injured, it's that when he actually was healthy in 2024, right before that Achilles rupture, he was statistically the worst starting quarterback in the entire National Football League. That's not an opinion, that's math. He had the lowest expected points added per dropback and the highest off-target percentage in the league. But amid all this darkness, there is a silver lining. This is the brutal, cold truth of the NFL business model. This right now, this is his final audition. If this experiment fails, if his body betrays him again, or if he just continues to struggle reading NFL defenses, Cleveland can finally officially move on. The oppressive salary cap math finally opens up a window for escape. And waiting for them right there on the horizon is a deeply loaded 2027 draft class. 2027 is the magical year where the Browns' cap is finally purged of all that devastating dead money, allowing them a completely clean slate. Elite, generational quarterback prospects are projected to be available in that specific class, offering Cleveland a chance to just completely reset the culture and rebuild the roster from the ground up. The stakes literally could not be any higher right now. It is either an improbable movie script comeback or a total scorched earth teardown of the organization.
Which leaves us with this final, haunting question. Will a $230 million gamble finally pay off in some miraculous display of physical resilience, or is the writing already on the wall? Is a rookie named Shedeur Sanders about to step up and inherit this entire franchise? The tension in Berea is very real, folks. But as we've seen today, it has absolutely nothing to do with Myles Garrett missing a few OTAs. It is all about a franchise holding its collective breath, staring straight down the barrel of the most consequential, high-stakes quarterback competition in recent NFL history. The clock is ticking toward that June 11th deadline. Everything, and I mean everything, is on the line. I really want to know what you think about all this. Drop your predictions in the comments below. Is Watson done, or does he really have one last heroic run in him? Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Don't forget to subscribe to NFL Nexus, like this video, and seriously consider becoming a channel member to support more cinematic breakdowns just like this one. Until next time, keep your eyes on the war room.